All right, hello everyone. Um, this presentation is on my MBA 715 auditing course, and this presentation is on Tableau. Here, we're going to speak about how to input the Excel file, the company's data into Tableau, and then create the different dashboards to answer some questions. And so this project, there's two parts to this project. The first part is putting the created dashboards onto the Word document along with the questions and answers to the questions. And then for all the questions and all the dashboards and all the answers. And then organize them and then create a PDF documents from that. So that's the first part of the project. The second part of the project is to do a presentation as I am doing right now that will speak about the the project and the dashboards and the questions and the answers to the questions. So let's get started with the the input of the data, the Excel files to create the dashboards. So first I'm going to show you share, and I'm going to show you here, right? This is Tableau. This here right here is Tableau, and to get started, first we need to upload. We need to upload the Excel file, and the Excel file is the shipping file. That's the company's data. We upload it and select it, click open, and it uploads into Tableau. And this is what we have here. The source file, which is when you upload it, is the source file. Here you have the different fields and the name, and then the information in each of the fields, etc. So that's where we got our source, our data. And then we created the dashboards. So this is the dashboards, and there are five of them. The first one is the revenue trend, and these are all for 2021, the year 2021. The first one is revenue trend. The second one is total sales by customer. The third one is average sales by customer. The fourth one is Q4 forecast. The fifth one is Q4 actual. And then the last one is the dashboard that includes all of them together. And so let's just go back to the Word document and with the questions, and we have to answer those questions. So I'm going to go here, and this is the document that we're going to look at here. And all right. So the first question, right, that it asks us to answer is what 3 months had the highest sales in 2021? And I already have the answers in red. So the highest sales in 2021 are in March 2021, September 2021, November 2021. And I also copy from the Tableau the dashboards onto here. But let's go flip it over and see the dashboards. And we could analyze and answer that question. Okay, so um, here, right, we have the low point and the high points. We care about the high points only because we want the highest sales for the year 2021, the month. So this one is high sales. So March 2021, we have 213,325. We have another high point here September 2021, 227, 547. And the last high point is the November 2021, 258,881. And that's answer to our first question here, which we already have. Now going to the second question. The second question is, what other number has been inputted as a measure instead of a dimension? Okay, so what this question is saying is that we, when I inputted the Excel file into this Tableau, Tableau by default organized the fields into measures and dimensions. The top part is the dimension, the bottom part is the measure, and the top part, if so these used to be so customer number, you see customer number, invoice number, order number used to be measure, and then I converted into dimension and it moved up. So that answers that question regarding what other number has been inputted as a measure instead of a dimension. And so these are the numbers, right? Customer number, invoice number, and order number. And I converted to dimension. Moving on to the next question. Which customer number has the largest total sales volume? Okay, so now I go here I already have the answers here in red, and I also copy the dashboard here as well. But let's go back to the Tableau and into the next dashboard over here. We have you can see this visually, right? Graphically, right? Easily by the circles and the size of the circles, which client has the largest total sales. And one that stands out is the client 100140, which has a total invoice of 286,691. So that's the big chunk right here. And that answers the question here, saying which customer number has the largest total sales volume? This one right here, right? Now moving on to the next question. Which customer number has the highest average invoice amount? I have the answers here, and I also copy from Tableau dashboard this part. But let's move back to Tableau and then go into the next dashboard, and we'll see that to find the highest average sales by customer is to look at the very top one instead of the bottom one. So the very top one, if we go here, the customer number of 100208 has the highest average total sales and average invoice total. And that total invoice is 14,124, customer number 100208. And I have that here too. Okay, moving on to the next question. We're going to look at sales forecast versus actual sales. And we're comparing to the two. And what are the forecast sales for 2021? The forecasted sales for 2021, the months are for the month of October, November, December. And we could go back to I already have the answers here and also the dashboard that I copied from Tableau. But let's say we go back to Tableau, we try to find this out ourselves. We go to the next dashboard, Q4 forecast. And here you could see, right? You could see here that this part right here, the gray part or the light blue part, that is the forecast, the Q4 forecast for 2021. And you can see a trend of upward upward moving forward or upward trend. And if you put your mouse there, you can see that October 2021, the forecast is 128 and 30. And then November, you move along the line. November 2021 is 143,413. And then you move along the line and then you see December 2021, 158,796. So that is the forecast for Q4 in 2021. Okay, now moving to the next question, right? Now it is the actual sales. What are the actual sales for 2021 and for the month of October, November, December? And I have the answers here already, and I also have the dashboard that I copied from Tableau, but let's look at Tableau and kind of figure this out, right? So we go to the next dashboard, the Q4 actual, and we go here and this is the actual instead of the forecast. So the actual here is that for October, November, and December. So October, October 2021 is 223,882. So that's the actual. And then November 2021 is 258,881. And then December is 2021 is 77,687. So that's the October, November, and December. Okay, so now moving on to the next question. Now these questions are regarding on the actual and the forecast, and we're comparing the two. We're seeing the underperformance or outperformance, etc., and for the actual and the forecast. And the first one of the question is what month significantly underperformed expectation? And I have the answer here as December 2021 is the month that significantly underperformed expectation. And you can see it right here. So the actual sales, right, that we did was 77,687, but we expected to be doing more. So we're underperformed by 81,109. So jumping to the next question, what month significantly outperformed expectation? Again, we look at this. I have the answers here again, right? And the month is November 2021. The actual, so the actual is 258,881, and the forecast is 143,413. And because the actual is higher than the forecast, it outperformed by 115,468. All right. And jumping into the next question, this is a little bit of a relate to audit. Some of the weakness for the model that we just did, the forecast model, what are the weakness? And here we could talk about, right? Like there are several inherent weakness in the forecasting model. And one of it is as we already know, the large deviation from the actual to the forecast. If I open it here, you can see the large differences. Let me see here. So okay, this is the actual, um, and these are the months, and this is the forecast, and they're all in the same year. And you can see that there's a big dip in performance in the forecast, uh, and then it went back up in December. So that's the big difference, like almost over 100,000. So that's the big variation with the actual and forecast. And so when it asks the question right here, when it asks the question, what are the inherent weakness? So the inherent weakness is that there's a large deviation from the actual and the forecast, and it represents like a lack of accuracy and consistency. The second weakness is lack of the responsiveness to trend. So for example, right, what this means is that if we look at it here, we have a trend of the actual from October to November. It went up and then it went down in December. But however, the forecast shows it went up for the 3 month instead of, and it doesn't go down at all any, right? So it's not responding to the actual trend. It has a trend of its own pretty much. So that's the second weakness for that. The third weakness is reliance on average or static input. So what that means is that the trend or the trend model that we see, it's uh it's relying on the historical data or the static history data and not by events such as, let's say, a holiday or a supply issue or something like that, or economic condition, customer behavior, etc. So it's relying on static input of previous information instead of the current economic event. So that's another weakness. The fourth weakness is it lack machine learning and AI. This means that because the variation is too high between the actual and the forecast, that there's a weakness, and it doesn't incorporate this model doesn't incorporate machine learning or AI, because if it did, then the weakness wouldn't be there, and there wouldn't be a big variation. So that's the fourth weakness. It doesn't incorporate AI and machine learning. And the last one weakness, right? Potentially poor feature selection. Um, so what this means is that it doesn't capture what drives what drives the trend. And because it doesn't capture what drives the trend or the changes, the current economic conditions such as pipeline, marketing activities, then the output would be off. And that's what we see. And that's another weakness. So going back to now, we're done with that question. Now we're going to the next question, right? The next question is, what audit evidence will the auditor need to obtain during the audit to be comfortable with revenue during Q4? So for the auditor to become comfortable with revenue during Q4, because there's a large variation and discrepancy between the actual and the forecast. So what happened is that what happened is that there could be fraudulent activities or there could be inaccuracy that cause it. So the auditor needs evidence to prove that that's not what happened. There's no error or there's no fraudulent activities. And how do you determine that? Well, we look at the one of the way, right? And there are many different ways, but one of the ways to sales invoice and contract. We look at the preparing the sales invoice and the contract, and we match them to see by, let's say, date of sale, product, service, like detail, amount, and pricing. And then we match them and see them and to a sample of them to verify if they are correct and they match. And if they do, then the accuracy is there. Another way is shipping documents and delivery confirmation. For example, let's say we ship an item, and then we have a document on the shipping of the item, and then once we ship it, and it receives by the customer, and there's a delivery confirmation, and then we could say, yeah, there's a shipping document, and then the delivery confirmation. Therefore, we say that it's valid that the transaction really occurs and the sales really occurs, and that there's no fraudulent activity or misstatement, etc. The other way is the cash receipt and the bank statement. Um, we trace collection to bank deposit. So we validate um, the the bank statement, the what we receive, the cash we receive, and then the bank statement that is deposited, and therefore that the information is accurate. And so that's with that one. So it helps detect fictitious sales. And then so now going back to the next one, right? The next way to see any fraudulent activity or errors is the account receivable, subledger, and aging. This means that we look at we reconcile the account receivable and the general ledger. We analyze the aging report see to assess the collectability and review the owe and unused balances, etc. So that's how we determine that, like matching account receivable and the aging and the ledger. All right, so that's with that. Going to the next one, the revenue reconciliation. Perform monthly and quarterly revenue reconciliation. We compare recorded revenue to prior periods, etc., and then see a trend. And then we if there's a significant variance, right, then we do our investigation and etc. So the one after that is the credit memos and sales return. This one is anytime there's a return on a sales, a customer return, we document it with a credit memo. So we review and match it with the sales return and the credit memo to ensure that's what happened and that's what affected the sales, whether it's uh, decreasing sales or maybe help sales. But in this case, it might be decreasing sales because customers are returning it. But that's a way to verify. Um, the next one is the journal entry testing. Uh, the way you do that is to examine manual journal entry affecting revenue in quarter 4 for unusual adjustments or potential fraud. So you're testing the journal entry to see if there's um, any kind of unusual activities or potential frauds. The next one is forecast versus the actual analysis. This is when we notice, we discuss with management the reason for the deviation of the forecast and the actual, and and determine if anything is manipulated to target, let's say, to meet sales or to make it to hit a target goal or a revenue goal. So so that is to the deviation. Does the deviation occur because the team is trying to target a goal or expectation? So that's a discussion with management on the deviation. And the last one, right, is the internal control over revenue. This means that to evaluate the controls that are in place and the controls that are in place for order, billing, revenue, etc., and making sure that the internal controls are strong to prevent any errors or um, prevent any frauds. So that's another thing to look at the determine the internal control to see how great this whole operation is going on. Um, so that's with that. And if I go back to the Tableau, and here we already mentioned about the different dashboards here, and then if I look at the final dashboards, which is which includes everything, right? It's all the dashboards put together into one dashboard. And this helps us see clearly and analyze the information to see what's happening, or the trends that's happening, or the sales, who did the best sales, etc. But that's all for this presentation, and I hope we could speak again or see you next time. Cheers, everyone. Thank you for joining. Bye bye.